Obviously, losing my husband and everything is just been just such a hard thing to deal with in life. Nothing that I ever thought that I would experience. But with that, I feel like I'm to the point to where I'm noticing how far I've come on this journey and all the growth that I've learned. I'm grateful for the perspective that it's given me on what's important in life and what to focus on, and how really at the end of the day, the only thing that we're guaranteed is that we're going to pass along from this life. So we have to make the most out of every moment and find joy in even the darkest situations, which a lot of times is hard to do.
Hello, and welcome to Grief, Gratitude, and the Gray in Between podcast. This podcast is about exploring the grief that occurs at different times in our lives, in which we have had major changes and transitions that literally shake us to the core and make us experience grief. I created this podcast for people to feel a little less hopeless and alone in their own grief process as they hear the stories of others who have had similar journeys. I'm Kendra Rinaldi, your host. Now, let's dive right into today's episode. Welcome to today's episode. I am excited to be chatting today with Victoria Moore, who is the founder of Yogi Mommy. Am I saying it? I want to say mommy because I speak Spanish. I want to
Yeah,
say
that's exactly how you say
it
it.
is?
Yep.
Mommy?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you speak Spanish, Victoria?
No, I don't. I'm
No.
Portuguese and Italian, so
Oh, so
yeah.
okay. I'm Italian. Rinaldi is my
I
last name. My
recognize that. I
dad's
know
yeah, my
Rinaldi's.
it's my grandfather's last name. So I'm Colombian and Italian background. So,
Oh,
um, nice to meet you. We're here chatting. We were chatting right before we started to record, just briefly, and then we're like, wait, let's just hop on and just let's just start
exactly.
recording. Let's not waste any time. Time is too valuable. So we're going to be chatting a little bit. You're going to share about your husband, your life, and what it was, what happened, and what it is now, and everything that's come. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll go from there.
All right. So my name is Victoria Moore. I am a homeschooling mom of two. I've been homeschooling for about 7 years before everybody else was kind of forced to do
Oh, you
it.
are a real homeschooler. You're not like us that pretend that we're home. No, ours, we have the teachers do
No.
that stuff. You really are the one preparing everything. You're a
Yes.
real homeschooler.
Yes. So I've been doing this for about 7 years. So luckily for me, it hasn't been too big of a disruption in our life, which is good because prior to all this, I became a widow in May of 2019. I lost my husband to suicide. He has struggled with depression and he took his life. And so that was completely out of the blue, completely unexpected. And it was hard to deal with. I never expected to be a widow at 37 years old with two young children. And so one
How
would think
old were
that
they? How old were they
they,
at that time?
7 and 9,
Mm,
they were little babies. They were
very
so
little.
young.
It's so recent, and I didn't realize that it had been so recent, Victoria, when we were chatting just before. I didn't it's just not even been 2 years.
Yeah, no, it's been just short of
Mm,
2 years.
mhm.
21 months on the 23rd of this month.
Wow.
So yeah, you would think that the hardest thing was losing my husband, and that was definitely number two. Number one had to have been telling my kids that their dad
Mhm,
passed.
mm.
That was very, very hard, and I don't think there's nothing that can truly prepare you for that. And so for me in that moment, I had to make a decision that my children, my babies, had already lost their dad to grief. I mean, had already lost their dad to suicide. And I
Mhm,
couldn't let them lose their mom to grief.
mm.
So at that moment, I knew that it was important to, set an example to them to how to grieve in a healthy way. Um, I wanted to turn my pain into a purpose and use what I could to help others who are in similar situations, because in that moment it was like my whole world just crumbled. And I didn't really know anybody who had gone through what I had gone through. And so prior to all this, I had actually been working from home when I was homeschooling my children. I had started a blog years ago when I was pregnant with my first daughter. And I would share with people just tips and tricks for how to live, healthier and happier. And so I was very comfortable sharing with people. I had grown an audience. And so I felt very comfortable sharing, hosting workshops, writing articles and blogs and, things like that. And so I knew that I wanted to use my prior experience with my grief to share with others.
Now, was this Yogi Mom? Was it your website Yogi Mommy that you used to share this prior? So this has existed prior to your husband's passing?
Yes, so it
Okay.
did. So I'm currently in the process of, now that I'm trying to do more grief stuff, I'm kind of trying to branch off and do more grief related too, while keeping the yogi mommy, because I still,
Mhm.
I'm passionate about living healthier and happier, but I want to have something more grief related too, but I don't want to overlap and push too much grief stuff on people that aren't
On the
grieving,
other
because
one. Got it.
yeah, I really feel like, I mean, I do still post stuff on there because I think it's important for non-grievers to have an understanding and learn some things, because,
They will
grief
grieve
catches
at
you
one
off
point or
guard.
another. Yeah,
Exactly, it's gonna
they're
catch
gonna
you off guard.
Yes, everybody's going I actually feel everybody's grieved at some point in their life. Different
Mhm.
types of grief. Not everything is death related when we
Yes,
grieve, but everybody is grieved at some point in their life. And
correct.
if they haven't, they will.
They
So
will.
being able to have those tools and have those conversations is beneficial. But like you're saying, you're going to create maybe just another page, another landing page to be more geared
Correct.
towards the grief as well. So that
Yeah,
because
just so it's I'm
you're
not
an
inundating
entrepreneur
them
as
too
well.
much.
You're in the health and wellness space like I am as well, as I just
Mhm.
noticed in your thing. So you're an entrepreneur as
Yeah,
well, as a yogi. You have your health and wellness products,
yeah.
and you're also now also you support you coach as well and create
Yes.
workshops. Yes. Okay.
Correct. So everything that I had learned before really has helped me and my children so much on my healing journey, because I was so passionate about health and wellness. I was certified in, yoga and meditation, and I'm a Reiki master, and hypnotherapy, neuro linguistic programming, all
Hmm.
of these, like over 15 different certifications that really helped me to feel more emotionally balanced when I was, or I mean, I still am grieving. I'm going to grieve forever, but it has helped me so much. People are like, "Oh my gosh, how do you do it? You're so strong." And truly, I know that it's all of these tools that
Hmm.
I have, been learning and getting educated in over the past decade.
That's
And so that's
I
what I love
love that.
sharing with people.
Now, which one of these tools do you feel? I'm sure they've each served us a purpose throughout this journey at different times. So,
Mhm.
in the immediate instance when you experienced your grief, when he passed away, how do you like to express it? By the way, I always ask this to my listeners: what kind of words would you like me to, when he died, when he passed away, when he took his, what would you
Either
like us
either
to
is
say?
fine. They're all fine with me. So either one.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
So, after his death, what was your husband's name, by the way?
Marcus.
After Marcus died, what were some of the immediate tools you used at that moment?
Well, I mean, honestly, at that moment when I was having to tell my children and I was having to answer questions to the police, and I mean, it was literally, 20 minutes after he had passed, I went straight for my essential oils.
Mhm,
I rub those on me, those because I've done so much work with them. Just the smell, the muscle memory from all the different work that I've done with it just completely grounded me and calmed me immediately.
mhm,
And it was something that I could easily do without having to like sit down and find, 10, 15 minutes for meditation, or I couldn't sit down and journal right then. I couldn't really do anything because, like I said, I mean, I was in a complete fog. My children are asking me questions. These policemen are asking me questions. I'm just looking around at my house being like, is this real life? Is this a dream? And
mhm.
so, yeah, my first thing was I just rubbed essential oils because it was, it affects the olfactory part of your brain, which is like the powerhouse of emotions. And so it was the quickest thing to kind of elicit a calming response so that I could get grounded and actually answer these questions without completely, breaking down and crying.
Yeah. Did you use them on your children too at that as well? Like, was it
I
something?
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
What?
rubbed some on them, and then I made a quick roll on, and then I gave it to my dad and said, "Take them to your house. You need to get them out of
Mhm.
here."
So that when you could deal with like the immediate business, I call it, around that's the thing that people
Exactly.
don't realize how much I'm air quoting, doing air quotes here, but
Mhm.
there's so many like logistical things that happen when somebody dies, and in this particular case even more because you had
Absolutely.
other factors to have
Exactly.
in place take into place. So what kind of words did you use then at that particular moment to let the kids know that their dad had died? And then how did you kind of navigate your own grief and at the same time theirs?
Um, Honestly, it's kind of hard to remember because, like I said, it was such
A
a fog
blur.
at the
Yeah.
time. I mean, I was very honest with them.
Hmm.
So basically, they were asleep when it happened, and then they had woken up with all the police and the ambulance and everything, and they had originally thought that they were there for like a neighbor because we had a neighbor, an elderly neighbor who the paramedics
The
would come quite often.
ambulance would come. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, so when I came in the house, they were like, "Oh my gosh, they're here for the neighbor." And I just had to look at them and I said, "No, they're here for your dad." And they were like, "What?" And I just had to say, "Yeah, your dad's dead." And I couldn't really go into much more details at that point with them
Hmm.
because I didn't know what was the right thing to say because they were so little. I
Yes.
wanted to be honest with them, but I didn't know if that was the right thing to be honest with them.
Hmm.
I did end up telling them actually that day, the truth, because for me, I felt like that was the right thing to do. Even though they were young, my children are very emotionally
Perceptive.
mature. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, he had struggled. His suicide didn't come, I guess, completely out of shock because he had struggled with depression.
Hmm.
Um, I guess it just was a shock because you never really think that that's going to happen.
Hmm.
So they had kind of known that he was sick, and I just had to tell them, his brain was sick, and it's sad, it's unfortunate, but I had to be honest with them because I didn't want it to be when they get older they were upset that they didn't know the truth.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's those split second decisions, right? That you never really know, like, which way should I go in this particular moment? And in that moment,
Yeah,
honestly, whatever somebody decides to do, that's the right thing to do because that's the only thing you know
exactly.
in that moment. So even if you choose to maybe not say the truth in that moment, that's the best you knew to do in that particular
Exactly.
instance, and that's fine. But and everybody just makes the choice based on their own circumstances,
Mhm.
their own ability to kind of even handle that themselves as to what they'd say to their kids.
Absolutely, because
So
like I said, there's no handbook in how to
no
do
has
it.
no,
Yeah,
no,
and
no.
even if
And
there
even if
was,
there
it wouldn't
were,
be the right. Yeah.
I know we're both saying, we're like, wait, and even if there were, it's like I always say that even like kids, when my kids were little, I'm like, wait, I would post things on Facebook like, I haven't found that in any manual that says like, what am I supposed to do in these particular circumstances? Like there's no manual. You have these children, and then all of a sudden you're like, I don't even know what to do if X, Y, or Z happens. And even if there were a manual, like we're saying, that every person's so unique, it wouldn't necessarily work.
Mhm.
The instructions that may be on that manual might not be the
Yeah,
ones that work for your dynamic. So
exactly. They're
we're
like
all kind of
fingerprints,
learning as we go.
it's different
Yes.
for every single person.
So different. And like what you said in terms of even how people are in awe then of your have you've been navigating then your grief journey. As you even said, it's because you have all these tools that have helped you then in this process, right? So
Yeah.
you have you were able to in that split second grab your essential oils. You knew exactly which one to rub to help you focus or to help you calm down or
Mhm.
to whatever you needed to do in that moment of
Yeah.
survival mode.
Mhm.
And then you knew to maybe do meditation, yoga at certain other points. You knew
Mhm.
Reiki, so you could kind of take that. With the NLP, like how did you use neurolinguistic programming for yourself, or did you use it more in the way that you would talk to your kids about it? How did that play a part as well?
It did. So I would use it just in how I talked about my grief and my emotions in general, as well as how I would talk to the kids.
Yes.
NLP is just really, kind of like
Choicing of
training,
words.
like your
Hmm.
yeah, your words and your beliefs and your thoughts. And so, just mixing all of that with like with the meditation and hypnosis, I would start recording
Mm.
myself. I had recorded actually albums on iTunes prior to this. For one was like for birth because I did hypnobirths. I did both my natural, so I created
Oh
like an
my
album of
gosh,
that.
I need to have you talk to my sister's a doula. She would like
Oh,
love to hear about the hypnobirthing for
yes.
if she ever has a client that may need something like that. So cool.
Yes. So yeah, so I had already recorded albums. So what I would do is I would go online and started recording albums for myself, and I would put them on my phone and I would just listen to them at night when I would go to sleep. And so it would help me because especially when you become a widow, and I think just grief in general, but obviously mine is coming from a widow's perspective.
Mhm.
My sleep was a mess. My sleep was all over the place. I was lucky if I could sleep for an hour and a half at a time. The
Mm.
PTS nightmares were horrible. I was waking up like in sweats, just kind of like reliving the whole events of that morning. And so the hypno meditations that I created were really helping me. And so then I started thinking, well, wait, I have two other albums I created. Like, if this is helping me, like, clearly it'll help other people. So I
Oh,
went
wow.
in and like re-recorded them to be like a better quality. And then I actually released a grief to gratitude album, hypno meditation
Ah,
album that's on
wait, look at
iTunes.
that. Grief to no wonder you're like, "Oh, this podcast about this resonates with me." If my
Oh, I
podcast is called
when I
if
saw
you
your name, I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's meant to be."
I'm so about signs. I am so on that
Me
wavelength
too.
with you, Victoria. I'm all like, "Oh my gosh, we were meant to be. We were meant to be BFFs
It's a
because this happened and
sign.
this happened." Oh, like, life happens exactly how it's supposed to happen. How
It does.
cool that and so then when you released it, did you do it on Spotify or did you put it on your
So I
website
have it,
for
it's
people
on,
to
I think, yeah, I think it's on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Music.
and how long is the recording? How long is it? Like, yeah.
There's, you know what, let me know. Let me check. I think there's like 16 different tracks. There's all different ones. So
Oh,
there's ones with like
wonderful.
releasing grief. There's ones that are like affirmations. There's ones like
Oh, we'll
connecting with
have to
your
add it.
loved one.
Make sure to
There-
send me the specific link of that to add
I
also
will.
aside from your website, just the specific link to that so we could put it in the show notes and people can click on it and they can be able to access that. That's wonderful.
Yeah,
What a
I
great
will.
resource. So, okay, so then you use that then for yourself then in that
Mhm.
process. And
Yes.
then
And
what other
so,
yeah, go ahead,
oh, go
continue.
ahead.
Sorry. No, no, no. You
Oh,
go,
no,
you go.
we're both talking. Um, So yeah, so I do this, like, I created the album, and then I do just kind of like workshops or one-on-one sessions or even group sessions. I'm doing I have 15 widows like a week from now. She actually just messaged me right before this. And so yeah, I just love to share this with other people that are grieving because it's been so powerful for me.
Wonderful. And now what has been then other so you said you mentioned your dad, you said the kids went to with your dad, you gave the
Mhm.
roll-ons. What other community or things where do you live by the way? What area?
I'm in
You're,
San Diego, California.
you're in California. So
Yes.
do you have family nearby? What other resources did you have aside from all these tools of the things you had learned? Did you have that support of friends and family during this time?
Yes, so I
And
was very blessed. So we were actually we were supposed to be moving out of San Diego where I'm born and raised. We were supposed to be moving out a week after a
mhm.
week after my husband passed. He passed a
Where were
week
you going to
before.
move? Where were you going to
We
move
were
to?
gonna move up north up by his parents. And that was kind of, I guess, a contributing factor to his depression. I didn't realize how much
Mhm.
he didn't want to move.
Mhm.
And
More towards the
so
LA area? More towards
yeah,
LA?
Central
Mhm.
California, like kind of near Santa Barbara.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like Santa Barbara
I
area.
used to live in I lived in California. I lived in LA for about 8 years.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So
so,
I
like,
went
just
up.
north of Ventura, basically.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Um, so we were gonna move up there, and then he took his life, and I ended up staying here in San Diego because for me, I couldn't just leave with when all that happened.
Mhm.
So we were in the process of moving out of our house, so I had, all my friends from high school, their husbands, just, neighbors, a bunch of people came over, helped me finish packing, helped me move everything into storage, and moved in with my parents for a few months to kind of just get myself situated. And then me and the kids moved about a mile from my parents' house. And yeah, so we're very lucky. We have a strong support system. I was very lucky in the sense that somebody had mentioned to me, so I mentioned before that I had been blogging and stuff. So I had a really great online community. And one of my girlfriends who lost one of her twin sons in a home birth, actually, she
Mm.
had been grieving. And so she had met with a bunch of people, and she had a friend who was a widow. And so she mentioned to me, um, it was called Camp Widow. And so I looked into it, and what that is it's kind of like a 3 or 4 day workshop type thing for widows. And it turns out it was in San Diego, in my hometown, about 6 weeks after my husband passed. So it was perfect for me because I didn't have to get a hotel or anything. And I went to that, and it was such a great resource because they had lots of just workshops of how to parent through grief, and even dating after becoming a widow,
Mhm.
and finances, connecting with your loved ones, meditation, yoga. They had different like networking mixers to where you can meet other widows that had lost a spouse in a similar situation. And it, for me, it was so great because becoming a young widow, like I said, I didn't know anybody who was in my situation. And so like young widows are like unicorns. When
Mm.
people
Mm.
meet me, they're like, "Oh, are you divorced?" I'm like, "No, I'm widowed." And they're like, "Wait, what? But you're so young." And I'm like,
Mhm.
"Well, unfortunately, young people die too and leave young widows." And
Mhm.
so for me, Camp Widow was awesome because I didn't feel so alone and isolated.
You didn't feel like a unicorn,
I didn't feel like a
or you
unicorn.
were with the other unicorns, you guys.
Yes, and so it was being around other people that understood what I was feeling, and just the complex emotions and everything that comes with it. And so that to me was so huge because I got to just meet with other people that understood it. And so even though most of them didn't live in San Diego, we still always keep in contact with each other. We check in on each other. We remember each other's, like hard days, like when we lost our loved ones.
Mm.
And so we'll just kind of check in on each other, or like on Valentine's Day, we'll all send each other like, we love you, because we know that you're not hearing it from
From
your
your other from your
person,
per yes, that's so true.
and
So how
nobody's
yes,
thinking
so
about it.
how was it for you then? How like because 'cause you've only had one Valentine this coming one will be your second
Hmm.
Valentine's then. Like, those kinda dates and the first Christmas and the first or whatever holidays that you celebrate, how did you navigate those? And thank goodness you were with your parents, but
Yeah.
how were some of those events, and what did you do to honor Marcus's, memory in those moments too?
So what I tried to do is, like at Christmas time, I tried to do some of our same traditions, but I also tried to maybe eliminate one of the ones that I knew would be a little bit too difficult for us emotionally,
Right,
and try to
like
create.
what? Like things that
um
were like like brought him up much more into your
Yes.
mind or okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So I tried to kind of focus on us creating kind of new family traditions without
Mm,
completely letting go of the old ones, but just kind of having it to where he was there, we talked about him, but it wasn't so heavy.
the main focus, like it was not like the full focus of that particular event type of thing?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, like, for example, the first Christmas, I said I was canceling Christmas, and I was online looking for cruises or trips to Europe because I was just going to take my kids, because I was just like,
Mhm.
nope, we're just not going to do Christmas this year. And my parents were like, "You can't do that." So they ended up getting a cabin in Big Bear, and me and my sisters and like the whole family went. And so that was really fun. And that kind of took our mind off of it.
Mhm.
Um, and then like his birthday, like last year would have been his 50th birthday. So for that, we went to his favorite restaurant and invited like his family and his friends, and we went and we celebrated. And it was good, but it was sad, but it was good. And we were glad that we did it. Um, Valentine's Day, I don't really remember Valentine's Day last year. I don't think that one bothered me too much.
I think
But
it depends also on what that day meant in you guys. Like, for example, my husband and I, but we don't do Valentine's is not like it's just another calendar day for us. Like, you know what
yeah,
I
that's
mean?
how
It's
it
not
was for us.
yeah, so I think that that's why maybe it's not that big a deal for you, because for us, it's like that. It's just kinda like, "Oh, happy Valentine's," like, and I and especially after we had kids, not
Yeah.
even less, like, it's like I'll just
Yeah.
buy them everybody chocolate or whatever, like, it's not like that big big a deal in our home. So I think maybe that's why maybe that's why it didn't mean too much for you
I
last
think I do remember
year.
getting a little bit bitter, like, when people were posting,
Uh-huh.
like, flowers and stuff, I'd be like, "Eh, that's stupid." Like, I'd get off Facebook for the day or something, but other than that, like, I don't think I wasn't, like, a sobbing mess. I think I was just, like, bitter.
That's a thing, and that's the complexity of grief is that the emotions
Mhm.
are not just always just sad. It's not always
Yeah.
just sadness, as you said. It could be bitterness, it could be anger, it could be resentment, it could be
Yeah.
gosh, like what other emotions can you
Oh, well,
think
and then
of?
with suicide comes with even, like, the
Oh
shame and
gosh.
the guilt and,
No,
you know what I'm
yeah.
saying, thinking, like, "What could I have done differently?"
So much. Now,
All
did you
sorts of
mention
stuff.
okay, curious because my friend says that she can almost always know when somebody posts on Facebook if it has been by suicide just
Yes.
because of how it is. How did you share that announcement on social media? What words did you use? I just curiously.
Um
Do you remember?
I remember saying I could pull up the post, but I probably something along the lines of, "I wish that you could have seen your potential. I wish you could have seen how much you were loved."
Mm,
You know? Because that's what it was is, you know, with
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 mental
suicide, they
illness,
think
it's so
that, you know, you're better off without them, or they're almost like they're doing
a
a
favor.
favor,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
they're a
yeah.
burden or they're a
Mhm.
problem or, you know, you'll be better off without them. And it's suicide. I mean, depression lies to you. It completely
Mhm.
lies to you. It tells you all these different lies. And one day you just lose the war with those lies.
Those were that it becomes so loud in their heads that that's the only voice they hear and not their other inner voice of the truth that's in front of them. They only hear
Exactly.
the voices.
Yeah.
Um, what was your story with how did you meet Marcus? And I want to go there if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Would that be okay? Sharing a
Yeah.
little bit about your how you guys met and then becoming parents and so forth?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, nothing glamorous. We met randomly at a bar one night. He told me, like, within probably 20 minutes of us meeting, he said, "Oh, I'm gonna marry you."
Oh.
And I looked at him and I said, "Ew, do you know the quickest way to send a girl running down the street? Like, who says that? Oh my goodness." But he was cute and he was charismatic and he was Portuguese and Italian too. So
Uh-huh.
we just kind of hit it off and we fell in love really quick. We moved in like after 6 months of dating and got engaged after a year. We got married and then really got pregnant right away. We got pregnant on our honeymoon, but then we had a
Mhm.
miscarriage. And
Mm.
then we got pregnant again and we had our daughter, Mia Moore. And
Mi
she was
amor
born
is her name?
actually, her name
Oh
is Mia
my good
Moore.
mi amor, I love it. And do you write it just like that? Mi amor?
Yeah, well, her first name is
M-I-A
Mia, and then her last
mi
name is Moore.
amor. More, mi amor. Oh, it's like so more is it sounds so perfect. So I thought it was mi amor more. So it's Mia Moore, but mi amor.
Yep,
Oh, so
yep,
perfect.
Mia
So Mia,
Moore.
okay.
Yeah, so she was actually born on our one-year wedding anniversary, so that was an
That's
interesting way to celebrate our one-year anniversary. Yeah, and then had our son about 2 years later,
and what
and
is
we
his
were
name?
Mason.
Oh, Mason. Do you have M names? I do too. My kids are
Yes.
Mateo and Mila.
Oh,
Mine
I
are
love
both
it.
yeah, mine are both M names. M&M, M&Ms.
Yep,
These are
that's
my
what we are,
M&Ms.
Eminem. That's so funny. I love it.
Love it too.
Yeah, and then we
So
were married for about 12 years, almost 12 years. No, almost 11 years when he passed.
when he passed away. Now,
Yeah.
when did you know that when you met that he suffered from depression? Did you know that at the
I
beginning, or
did.
was it something? Okay.
Yeah, it was something that he had struggled with prior to me. But he seemed good. He was not on any medication. He was not talking to a doctor. I mean, from our whole relationship, there was no problems. Even
Mhm.
everybody said, like, oh my gosh, he's like a different person. You just make him so happy. Um, until it was probably, it happened in January of 2019 is when it got really bad. And it just, since then, it just was like, just like a huge snowball effect. It was like before I even knew it, he had taken his life. It happened so quickly.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then in that particular time when his depression hit hard, was he able to work? Was it, or was it a debilitating? Was he able to kind of do, the things, or was it debilitating that he even started to even not work, or
It
how?
was, well, so yeah, so January is when he went on a leave from work.
Hmm.
He had told me in January that he had been having thoughts of taking his life. And
Hmm.
so I immediately got him to a doctor. And so he had been seeing a doctor. He had been trying a couple different medications. And then that had happened, that was from January until May. We actually took a family trip to Portugal with his family, his parents, brother, sister, and nephew, and us and the kids. We went in March, end of March, I think. And he was just way different on the trip because we had gone to Venice a couple years before, and that trip was so much fun. Him and I had so much fun. We would go out, we would try new restaurants and just like adventure. And when we were in Portugal, he was just really different. He was just
Hmm.
very distraught. He didn't really want to do anything. He just kind of like, he didn't want to even go out and sightsee or anything. It was really weird. And so that's when I kind of was like, okay, things are getting really bad. And we came back and had talked to his doctor, and I was not impressed with his doctor at all. And I had been kind of looking around to try to find somebody else, but then everything just happened too quickly.
Do you feel like in these instances of all the things that come, that the emotions, are some of those related to the choice of doctor for you, for what he had?
I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
I
Or
definitely.
at least at the
I mean,
beginning, was that, yeah.
from
Hmm.
my experience in general, talking to other people and having so like my neighbor, where we had lived, her 18-year-old son had taken his life 6 months prior to my husband taking his. And so I knew the struggle that she had dealt with the mental health system as well. So I was, even prior to my husband taking his life, I knew how broken the mental health system was. And
Mm.
so I had already been kind of researching kind of workarounds for how to get done what we needed to have done because the system is so broken. So that's my biggest thing is just, people that need help aren't able to get the help that they need in a timely
Yes.
fashion.
And I wonder if the same applies to what we were just talking about before, about the manual, and there's no manual for grief, no manual for kids because everybody's so unique. I wonder if that's the reason that it's so hard to really get the right fit,
Yeah.
not only of medication, but of even just the right therapist or counselor, whatever,
Yeah.
is because everybody's situation is so unique in their own mental health journey. Do you find that that may be the case, that why it's so hard to really, um, I don't know, yeah, make it
Well, I
work?
mean, yes, I do think that because yeah, there's so many different complexities and
Yeah.
different dynamics and just, everybody's so different and so unique. But from my experience, the problem is even getting an appointment in general.
Oh,
If
wow.
you need to see a doctor, you're having, suicidal thoughts or, depression or whatever, it's like 6 to 8 weeks out to even see a
No
doctor.
way.
Oh yeah.
No
Oh
way.
yeah. Oh yeah.
It should be like a 911 call type of thing.
Absolutely. That's what I don't
Wow.
understand, and especially with how prevalent suicide is. So that's why when my girlfriend, when she lost her son, they had an appointment. They had an appointment 8 weeks out, and he took his life on week 6.
Oh, no.
So when I had known that, and I knew that we were trying to find a doctor and trying to get an appointment, I knew like I don't have that time to wait. I don't have that time to wait. So I had to figure out how to fast track it, which is not glamorous at all. You basically have to go to the emergency room and sit there and wait to see a social worker who can then,
Mhm.
refer you to a therapist and, usually in order to even get to see a therapist, they have to admit you into the psych ward for like a day or two.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So unfortunately, that's what we had to do. And it was not glamorous. It was not cute, but that was the quickest way. Otherwise, it was going to take 8 weeks for him to see anybody. And honestly, he was gone within 8 weeks. And that was even with us fast tracking and getting him to see a doctor.
I'm so sorry, Victoria.
Yeah, it's this. I mean, that, so to me, it's like, it's not even the help that the people are getting. I think once they get the help, then it'll probably work if they get, a doctor who can adequately help them.
Something's
But
got to
it's just, it's
change.
the
Yeah, something
getting
has
the
to change.
appointment.
Yeah, something has to change for
It
sure. And this
has
is,
to.
oh,
And especially with like, with this whole like lockdown and coronavirus and stuff, like now it's starting to affect the young kids.
right.
It's like we don't have this time to wait. We got to get, you're having these thoughts, you need to see somebody within 24 to 48 hours, in my
Mhm.
opinion. Even if
Absolutely.
it's through like, a telemedicine Zoom call or something.
Yeah, what is that? That 1-800, that 1-800 number and stuff too that there is, right? Like, is that, what do they do? Like
So
that
that's
number?
the suicide hotline. So I've actually never called it. But I'm pretty sure, you're just kind of talking to somebody who is assessing the situation. And if you are having suicidal thoughts, they find out how to get you help, whether that be, maybe having, it's probably, along the lines of the
The
same thing,
same thing as
having
the
the
other.
police or paramedics come to you to take you to the emergency room so you could see a
Hmm.
therapist,
Hmm.
you know?
It's like another, I guess it's also, there's such taboo still around the topic of mental health. Don't
Absolutely.
you think? It's like, just like there's taboo over the topic of grief and death
Hmm.
and so forth. There's just such taboo. And until we switch that and really make it be like it is just like any other illness,
Yeah.
and needs attention, when,
Yeah.
and especially like in urgent situations like that, then nothing's going to change unless the system changes, like you just said,
Yeah.
and that
Well,
our
yeah, we need
perception
to
as
normalize
society
it.
changes. Yes, yes.
We need to normalize it. And I feel like, especially for men,
Mm,
men don't want to be seen as weak. They don't want to be seen, that they don't like to be vulnerable. They don't want to open up and admit that something's wrong. And so then oftentimes
they
it's too
hide it
late.
much longer. Yeah, they hide it in distractions and this and that, like from their family or surroundings. So it's
Hmm.
harder to even seek for help when you don't even know, because it's right, because it's hidden um,
Exactly.
from others.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's like a whole other thing to be able to talk about and stand up for and create, organizations to stand up for the change in this kind of help that is needed
Yeah. Well, that's my
around.
goal. I'm starting a nonprofit by the end of this year to help
Oh,
in his
okay.
honor.
So
Yes.
here come all these aspects of gratitude and everything that comes.
Yeah.
Look at the 180, right? That people take, and the gifts that then we can give others because of our own struggles and our own, pain. So like you said, pain to purpose. You said that earlier,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
So tell us then about everything that you feel so far in this almost 2-year journey that has shifted within you. And by the way, I'm looking at your picture right now on your website. Is the one on your website? Is this in Venice that
That
the
is
trip
in
to
Venice.
Venice?
Yeah, I
Did
hired a
you
photographer in
like
Venice to follow us
experience?
around and take pictures.
Oh, what a cool idea! That is such a cool. So on vacation to just have somebody be there with you
Oh,
to
yeah.
just
Oh, I did it
rather
in Portugal too. Every time I go somewhere, I'm gonna do it. I think I love it.
how do you just, like, search and then just, like, search for a
So
photographer in the area and then just, like, hire
there's
them?
a really cool, I actually did a blog post about it. There's on Yogi Mommy, there's a website called Flytographer.
How cool.
And you go on there and you type where you're going, and it'll show you all the different photographers in that area who they're contracted with, and you can look at their different portfolios and you can pick one and you book an appointment, and it's
Cool.
amazing. I love it.
How cool. And was the person with you, like, just the entire trip or, like, one day, like, as your tour?
We just hired her for a couple hours, and
Yeah.
so it was awesome because, you get to be with the locals, so you could ask questions like, "Where's the best place to go get a drink?" Or the best, "Where do I need to go visit that maybe isn't so, like, such a tourist spot?"
Yeah.
They'll tell
Uh-huh.
you, like, all the little secret spots.
And plus they
Um,
know the ones that are great for pictures. So
exactly. They take you to all the best places for pictures, and then as a mom, I feel like as a mom, you're always the one taking pictures,
oh,
right?
yeah, you're not in the pic you're like selfies, yeah, in all our
Exactly.
family pictures, my head is, like, the closest to the lens because I'm
Mhm.
with my phone, like, holding my arm like this, and then it's like,
Yep.
you know, big oh my gosh. Okay, so sorry for the little, distraction there, but I was just like, "Oh," I got kind of, like, looking at that and thinking of, like, "Oh, this was one of the trips." So
Yeah.
you tell us then what has changed then and, within you in the last almost 2 years, and what things have you done aside from everything that you've already mentioned, and you can relist them again.
Well, okay. So, I mean, obviously losing my husband and everything is just been just such a hard thing to deal with in life. Nothing that I ever thought that I would experience. But with that, I feel like I'm to the point to where I'm noticing how far I've come on this journey and all the growth that I've learned. I'm grateful for the perspective that it's given me on what's important in life and what to focus on, and how really at the end of the day, the only thing that we're guaranteed is that we're going to pass along from this life. So we have to make the most out of every moment and find joy in even the darkest situations, which a lot of times is hard to do. And it looks different for everybody. And I don't know how to tell you how to do that, but it's just something that you have to try to do, whether it be through your children or walking in nature or finding a new hobby. And yeah, I don't know, it's just really kind of shown me what's important in life. I don't stress about the silly small stuff anymore because it doesn't matter at the end of the day. I don't try to control everything anymore because guess what? You can't control it. The more you try to control, sometimes, God or the universe decides to throw you for a loop. Not to say that, that's what happens is like, God's making you like you deserve something, but
Right, that's
you don't know what's going to happen. And so you just need to enjoy every second and try to find joy and love everywhere you can.
that's wonderful. Now, within your communities then, talk about then the different things you do. Then you have Yogi Mommy, as you
Mhm.
have the blog, you have your women's group. So share a little bit about all these other ways in which you're giving back.
Yes. So right now, my only current website is just theyogimommy.com. I'm hoping to create some additional ones for my additional services, but right now, everybody can kind of connect with me through that on Instagram and on Facebook and through my blog. I do offer one-on-one coaching and group coaching. So I'm actually creating a 6-week program for widows that should be starting next month. And we do all sorts of different techniques. So I basically empower you to learn techniques that you can then do on your own whenever you need it. So it includes the hypnotherapy, meditations, tapping, aroma freedom technique, all sorts of just different mind body modalities, breath work, journaling, all sorts of things. And then I have my album, my Grief to Gratitude album is up on iTunes and Google Music and Spotify.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you so much because yeah, you've just kind of shown everything that can come from something so hard. I always think of it even just like um birth, right? Like you go through something so hard and all
Hmm.
these pains, although you probably didn't because you had a hypno birth. So you probably
Oh, I felt it, girl. I still felt it.
joking. I didn't feel I had an epidural, so I'm one of those. I had extra help, and still, of course, I felt the contractions beforehand and all that. But the yet something in a painful moment of and it really is traumatic even for the child being born in that
Yeah.
moment.
Yep.
Yet something so beautiful comes from it. So in these kind of situations with even grief, it's a lot of beauty can come from it
Yes.
as well, and you're demonstrating that. Now I'm going to ask you to share this because I was about to like comment yesterday. I just got distracted and didn't end up commenting in your stories about
Uh-huh.
your new tattoo because I see it now on your
Ooh.
logo. Can you please share? I saw an infinity. I saw infinity,
Mhm.
I saw lotus, and I saw the crescent moon. So would you mind sharing, whether with me or the listeners. If you don't want me to like keep
Yeah.
this part, I don't have to keep
Oh
it.
no, I could. So it is a unilome, and what that is a unilome is a Buddhist symbol of basically kind of like the journey of life. So it's that the path to life is not straight. There's twists and turns and lessons to be learned and mistakes to be made, and so each unilome is a little bit different. And so the one that I created with my tattoo artist Sam includes a lotus flower because lotuses bloom out of mud. So they bloom out from, when you think you've been covered in mud, you've been thinking you've been covered in dirt, you've been buried, you actually can, something beautiful can bloom out of the mud. And then the moon, because the moon has so many different phases, and so do we with our emotions. Our emotions, wax and wane with things just like the moon. And so that explains my little design.
It says so much about your journey, just
Yeah.
and thank you. It just even that expression. And I don't have any tattoos, but I like to ask people about it because I feel that if somebody were to put something on their body that's going to last forever, it has to have a lot of symbolism and meaning. And yours just has this such a beautiful spiritual connection to it. And thank you for sharing that. It says a lot
Oh, thank you.
about you and your journey and your beliefs as well. And like you said, like twists and turn, it's not always just from A to B and that's it. Nope.
Yep,
Lots of
exactly.
different detours to along the way in our life. And I love that description of the lotus bloom in mud. Um, I just wrote it down because it might end up being the title of this podcast. Who knows?
The lotus blooms out of the mud.
And lotus blooms out of the mud. Yeah, I put that in. Then I put the
I love it.
pain into purpose. So the little things that strike me like that, I write them down, and sometimes end up being the title of the episode. Is there
Awesome.
anything else I did not ask you that you'd like to share? Any last words that you want to share in this podcast?
Mm, I think that's it. Thank you for having me. This has been such an honor. I've loved chatting with you for the
I've
past
loved
hour.
chatting with you too. Thank you so much, Victoria, for
Yay.
sharing and for the kids to have mommy be on podcast. I'm sure they're so used to doing their own thing now with homeschooling. So thank you for taking that time to share your journey.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Thank you again so much for choosing to listen today. I hope that you can take away a few nuggets from today's episode that can bring you comfort in your times of grief. If so, it would mean so much to me if you would rate and comment on this episode. And if you feel inspired in some way to share it with someone who may need to hear this, please do so. Also, if you or someone you know has a story of grief and gratitude that should be shared so that others can be inspired as well, please reach out to me. And thanks once again for tuning in to Grief, Gratitude, and the Gray in Between podcast. Have a beautiful day.